This is the most critical information on earth in DNA. DNA is declared the book of life. You need to sit down and be wise and listen to every single word I have to tell you. I'm a messenger here, right? So don't think with religious political behavior New Age cult. Don't worry about grammar, artificial intelligence, evolution mutation, or anything that's going on in the world. Put everything down that you come to believe in, no matter what it is. Put everything aside for a moment. You need to listen to me very carefully, okay? And which words I select and what grammar. You see, most people select with unnatural selection with grammar in certain barcode systems, and that's their intuitive power. When people live in their mentality, in their personality, and depend on grammar and IQ behavior, and they're brought up with atheism from generation to generation to mold their systems, then they're programmed and engineered to what they believe in with that placebo effect. The placebo effect is anti-clockwise in our DNA, no matter what we think, no matter what we say, no matter what we believe in. 98.7% of the population, the placebo effect in the voltage reliability in the aura and DNA with all the genetic process, with their genetic memory and genetic repair kit, is anti-clockwise. Only 1.3% is clockwise, 24 hours a day, and gone through a natural selection in DNA, a natural process where their genetic memory has unlocked with all their genetic codes and their ancestry genetic tools with 130 nucleosome molecules genetic repair kit with 2 molecules of mortality. In the Star Chamber Inquiry in 1999, the Star Chamber Inquiry was one of the most critical inquiries and the first inquiry of its kind. In that inquiry, the inquiry was about people with supernatural abilities or superhuman power, mental telepathy, ESP, remote human telekinesis, levitation, spoon bending, clock winding, folding space and time with deja vu to predict the future and prevent what's going to happen. People on earth today with the most powerful miracles and miracles recorded in hospital with CCTV and peer reports, in these powerful miracles, we have 119 people that was declared clinically dead in hospital, paralyzed from their neck down, could not walk, and were told could never walk again. Something happened in a 3.5-year transformation in their genetic process, and each one of these 190 people got up and walked out of the hospital and went through a transformation with DNA studies done by the top bowlers in the whole world and the biggest think tank. You heard about Julian Assange getting locked up in England with all the documents that he exposed when they hacked the hub by the Anonymous in Australia, which is Pine Gap Area 51 Australia. And they exposed 30,000 documents back in 1997. 15,500 of those documents were released in the IPB sign reports in 1999. When you were told that the world is crazy, and literally if you go look at the documents, right, UN and NATO by the Rockefellers has designed us on reverse occult engineering. Okay, so we lost our sixth sense going into sixth mass extinction, stripped from the sixth sense for the sixth time. The whole world is living in what's called a delusional parasitosis, in a massive global delusional syndrome. They don't know what they're doing. They're living in their mind and a personality, trapped in mentality, okay, engineered and programmed this way. Their belief system is in a 5-sense world when they have 32 biofields, and 27 biofields biosphere doesn't work. They can only use their sixth sense to think instinctively 1 to 5%. So their aura in their body cells is only working 1 to 5% during the daytime and can only repair at nighttime when they're asleep. Some people can repair 24 hours a day because they don't live in their vessel in their mind, trapped in a personality with amnesia in a reincarnation trap. The rest of the world is. They have amnesia. They do not know what they do. They can only use 7 to 15% of their brain, and they're all living in a 23rd chromosome. And the 24th chromosome is dormant, as you can see in studies that are research, that gives you superhuman abilities, supernatural power. And the whole world's very jealous about this because they're artificial. And they're not one of these people in the 24th chromosome that can use all their godlike power and their supernatural abilities. That's why these studies happen. That's why Edward Snowden identified a lot of things about the hub in Australia with NSA, which is watching every human being on Earth right now, and you've been told that a million times and everybody's under mind control. They're actually under a possession. As declared by UAP disclosure in Pentagon last year in March 2024, there's an outside influence that controls everyone's reality with radio waves and a World Wide Web in a porthole with a sewing machine into a personality, the Matrix, right, which is light-powered, deceiving demonic in the fifth dimension fields in a five-sense world. And everyone is choosing their own gods without realizing it because of the mentality and the barcode they're in. They can't use their intuitive codependent power in their EMP pulse, right? It's called righteousness in the Bible. Okay, American says that, authenticity is the most powerful alignment. Authenticity is only a fancy word for honesty. Honesty is the best policy by being down to earth and creating a reputation by word of mouth. But authenticity, I can authentically tell you I'm going to kill you tomorrow and authentically plead guilty the next day. That's not righteousness. So the grammar is in the wrong barcode. So no American anywhere in the world has any enlightenment tools because they live in deceptions and lies. They don't have any divinity and divine power to command nature. Only a handful of people do that can master their mind. And they've been naturally selected for UAPs, unexplained aerial phenomena. And you're hearing all over the world and seeing there are orbs of lights all over the world, like the Midnight Light in Australia, okay, that people call the watchers watch over them, and some people have a relationship with that, a profound relationship. You have orbs of light, stars within the stars, and you've got mechanical orbs everywhere as well, and back engineering. So when we talk about the return of the gods, you're hearing about a lot of different aliens at the moment and a lot of different species, a lot of dark angelic beings and shadows from parallel worlds. As so identified in the first UAP disclosure, we're just beginning to learn about different dimensions of parallel worlds because we don't know where they come from, tic-tac UFOs, inner space, outer space, and space in between, because they disappear and reappear in front of our eyes, like the Midnight Lights in the outback of Australia, the watchers and watchovers that some people have a relationship with. And some of these orbs have a relationship with people, and they are the watchers, the watchovers, right, and been naturally chosen through natural selection, especially in 212 phenomenon. If you go and look up 212, right, but don't listen to people, 99% of people can only use, 99.999% of people can only use up to 15% of the brain. There's only a handful of people left in the world that can master their mind and use 100% of their brain, like you can see in the movie Limitless. Okay, movie Limitless shows you that a drug, right, can take you out of your mind to use 100% of your brain with a vortex of information with universal language. So they show you that right in front of your face, like crossing over. You can see him cross over, right, and come out of his shell, okay, and you can see two people. He looks back at himself, like Keanu Reeves in the Matrix documentary for Resurrection, okay? Now, Christ was the only one that knew this, how to think outside the mind, and the whole world was crazy, okay? And you try to tell everyone that you're a dead corpse and you've got no power, light, and energy, and no nothing unless you cross over and go through the resurrection of the rebirth, the crossover. And when people cross over, Plato wrote 15 books about this, the greatest philosopher of all time, with people that had divine power to command nature in the crossover. The ones that stick their head for the light in the tunnel, that's taking the red pill. Take the red pill, you can't go back because you wake up from amnesia and the reincarnation trap, and it's not what you think. It's a completely different way of thinking outside the mind with the universal language, like the light bulb idea, the picture that tells you was that cannot lie to you. The light bulb idea, an orbital light that comes down through dimensional thinking with remote viewing and deja vu to predict the future. So you go into another dimensional field and see into the future when you go down to the light in the tunnel, where the sun's light shining the other side and the grass is like greener, as Plato describes, and Jeremy Griffiths, who wrote the book Freedom, the cure of the human condition is going to save humanity, with DNA, with natural selection and life, hailed by 16,000 top scholars in the world. We found the cure that Christ knew and how to cross over, right, to go back in the primal state in the Christ image so we can all do what Christ can, DNA with genetic memory. But most people are so deceived and trapped in their mind, it's been declared that most people are beyond the point of return. Okay, they were called Species in the Nile in 2003. And they're trapped right into a 5 sense world with mentality on a screen all day, 8 hours a day on average. Completely lost their biofields and their connection with the tree of life, right? With all living things, nature, and also loved ones, family, and friends themselves. They have no codependent, intuitive relationships anywhere in the world. They conquer, debate, and divide with self-centered ego and competitive behavior with their own family, loved ones, and friends because they have no soul power with soul relationships. There's no soulmates. So the pillars of salt with the conduction, divine power to command nature's collapsed in 98.7% of the population that only depends on grammar. And he said, she said of the documents and believe in their own truth, trapped in their own mind to be competitive with coming to their own conclusion with reasoning. And it's been declared the voice of minds are ultimately designed for an extinction worldwide. It's a massive global confusion, frustration, delusion, and paranoia. And it depends on how much consent you give to how many unnatural selection you've done and what you're guilty for. And a natural selection takes you through a process back to your childhood through a 40-day fast. Okay, we're not breathing programs to pump the oxygen back to the holy breath of life, back to restore your Neuralink, the tree of life, Jacob's ladder, and recreate the sacred secretion to conduct with the sixth sense and meditation. Okay, it's won a Nobel Prize for this, for recreating the sacred secretion with the holy breath of life in your Neuralink. Okay, to recreate the sacred secretion and the natural process with DNA studies done. But you need to listen to the book Freedom by Jim McGivers that takes you through every rabbit hole to take you to the light of the inner tunnel, to stick your head out of the cave. And people don't understand this process at all because the mind does not know. You can see that in the movie Limitless with the drug that Christ and Moses used from a plant called maya. They called it bread manna. It's a life mechanism, a source of life. And it goes into your DNA, mRNA technology, and it starts to activate your progenitor genes with your genetic memory with multiple perceptions. That's why I put up a document from CIA disclosure 18 months ago, many times on platform, that methamphetamine made laboratory correct with organic products has a barcode system to open up perceptions, right, with dimensional fields in parallel worlds, multiple perceptions, a universal language, and all the pictures that comes to you, okay, all the pictures, okay, the pictures that tells you 1,000 words are going to lie to you, with the universal language that comes from out of the blue. Like you see in the movie Limitless, when he writes a book overnight, that's brilliant. And he masters his mind, uses 100% of his brain. Now, there's only a handful of people in the world that really knows this. And they've been naturally selected and gone back to their primordial state through a transformation in DNA, a massive global transformation recorded with the top bowlers in the whole world. They first knew in the Star Champion inquiry in 1999, I was the most wanted with 105 people arrested across Australia when we developed the drug. You see in the movie Limits, they brought people back at the primordial state and started using 100% of their brain. The course of Royal Commission, been paying out for 23 years, right, for manipulation, where kids get taken off your parents for mental disorders and defects, right, for domestic violence, going to homes to get raped and bashed and become prisoners and prostitutes later, set up by the Rockefellers and the UN with mental disorders when you go to school. You're perfect from 0 to 7 in your aura, clockwise, and can mastermind a computer game between 3 and 7 times faster than an adult can, with a high IQ. And as you can see on YouTube, Third-Eye Children Superhuman, by 8 years old, they can read, raw, and write blindfolded. Okay, and by 12 years old, they can predict the next outcome around the corner color it is, right, with deja vu. So they can predict what's going to happen. And they can predict who's ring on their phone, what they're wearing in the other end. When they're brought up correctly with their natural selection in life, with their sixth sense, like Bruce Lee can mastermind by 24 and by 12 be back karate blindfolded and block every single punch blindfolded with the sixth sense. He has deja vu and predicts, right, what's going to happen in the future and prevents what's going to happen. And that's what a child is at 12 years old. When they're not put into school to be mentally institutionalized and then come out of school at 18, 19 years old and think their parents are dinosaurs, and they lie to their kids with the boogeyman, the monster in the bed. The first aerial phenomenon that you have, unexplained aerial phenomenon, is the boogeyman, the monster in the bed. And some people see a shadow, an angelic being. And those angelic beings go straight to your parents and control your parents. So by the time they're 24 and Australia comes to the door, right, you see the cops and politicians paying out in the Royal Commission, right, pastors and preachers and teachers, and nurses that rape your kids, paying out for 23 years these species that you trust the most through schooling, right? They're the ones you mentally resonate with the most. They could be your best friend or your best uncle, and they'll be a child sex offender posing as a priest or a Christian or a teacher, and you wouldn't have a clue because you don't know people at all. You can see that in the Royal Commission. Been paying out for 23 years with cops, politicians, pastors, preachers, and teachers, right? And nurses rape your kids when they go into domestic violence in homes. Been happening worldwide for many years. You just keep turning a blind eye, and it's happening 10 times more today than ever before. by these species. And there's no convictions here. Okay, here you have them paid out for 23 years and not one person's arrested for this. When you look at the documents with an act of guilt and the payouts for 23 years, you see how many of these species rape kids and don't get convicted and get protected. That's how stupid you are. You actually cop that sweet, you do. And turn a blind eye when that happens every day and still happens to this very day because people are still mentally institutionalized, so their body starts going corruption, corrosion when they go to school, okay? And then their psychosis dies by 12 and they lose all their natural processes with their sixth sense and become like robots. By the time they're 24, get manipulated by these species in 10 seconds flat when they come to the door. And a child runs a corner because he can feel the truth with his sixth sense. And you don't pay attention to your children because you put them in school to be mentally institutionalized on reverse psychology like you are with amnesia. And you can only 7 to 15% of your brain. And then you deny it because you live in massive denial worldwide in your own delusion on a screen in a 5 sense world, with mind control. And you do what you're told. Right? You feed into the system controls you in every aspect of your life. You cannot stand in your own feet in your own sovereignty because you're too gutless to stand against the Babylonian beast and the things they do to you and do to your kids. So you do nothing about it because you all talk no action. And that's what's happening around the world. Everybody's all talk no action and turns a blind eye to what the real truth is in DNA, the book of life. Natural selection's taking place. Only 125 million people across the world has gone through natural selection. Nobody else has, living on a screen all day with self-proclaimed nutcases, trying to get your attention with delusions and wild imaginations. Because every Westerner lives in the voice of the mind and believe in their own truth, with illusion and imagination set up by the Rockefellers into a conscious singularity by WF. Engineered this way, and 98% of people has mental disorder and defects going through the roof. As disclosed worldwide, 77% of all American children are now born with chronic diseases because their parents are in brain-locked denial, with brain deformity, with brain fog. You can see that in the movie Limits. They all have brain fog in the whole world. You can see that in the movie with Keanu Reeves. And in the Star Chamber Inquiry, I'm number one gatekeeper worldwide with the most authentic DNA in the world that can do every single thing that Christ can and more in the most powerful documents on earth. And no one believes in me because they're nefarious. They're jealous, spiteful cowards, and they're possessed beyond the point of return in the majority, living in their own truth, with their own God. Okay, and that's a fact that people can't deal with. The natural selection is not what you think, right? It's not for pastors, preachers, and churches, and New Age, right, that lives on grammar. They have no idea what they're doing. It's indigenous people, shallow masterminds, monks and Buddhists, and the people on the streets that stands against your filthy Babylonian system that lies to you. You can see that in the Star Chamber Inquiry and the most powerful documents, right, the Chief Justice of Jersey put in courts, right, across every university in Australia in my case, the 8 most corrupt cases in Australian history. And you couldn't care less. You support them with all their corruption and all the corruption they're committing on a daily basis. You turn a blind eye every day and mind control. Reported worldwide in 1999. Your world is crazy. It's possessed and stripped from their sixth sense for the 6th time in the 6th mass extinction. Their biofields are gone. They live in their mind, in mentality with amnesia, in a reincarnation trap. And if they don't cross over and wake up, they'll never know. Like they say in the Matrix, take the red pill, go through your rabbit hole, and stick your head for the Lothian tunnel that Plato describes in 15 books, the greatest philosopher of all time. And Jeremy Griffiths and the top scholars in the world of DNA has studied the human conditioning and Plato for 45 years and found the cure, right, in the last human beings born on earth that can do every single thing that Christ can and more. Okay? And they've been naturally selected like this. And everybody's living in a delusional state and lies and distracts people from the brain, from the resurrection, the crossover. They know they saw it in the looking glass. They're going underground in military bunkers worldwide by 227. They saw it in the looking glass. 227, the new climate clock, 7-year countdown, the 7-year lay. Go look at a 2-minute video on YouTube. Vatican says 227. Clement predicted in 213 is 227. The orbs of light that come all over the earth. The orbs of light, men lights, stars within the stars, came from heaven to earth all over the world. And we were naturally selected. And some of us were naturally selected with these orbs from 1960 and before. In 2012, in the 212 phenomenon, thousands of people were selected all over the earth, naturally selected. That's prophecy of those that are selected, right, going through the rebirth and the crossover. The ones that are going the new timeline for 1,000 years with sevenfold wisdom knowledge, with genetic memory and a genetic process to preserve DNA with longevity. They were naturally selected with a natural order. With UAPs worldwide. And they knew in 1999 in the Star Chamber inquiry, because they picked out 105 people with godlike power in the biggest DNA and mastermind reports that they have. Back then. That's 26 years ago. And I was number one cab of the rank back then, involved in the biggest meetings by the biggest Star Chamber inquiry and think tank in the world. So I know more about this than 99.999% of people in the whole world does, because they haven't got a clue. It's a worldwide possession with a World Wide Web. And everybody's trapped in the mentality with an outside influence on their reality and don't even know, with amnesia. Amnesia means they don't know. They're trapped in their mind, can only use 7 to 15% of their brain. We are masterminds by our mind and use 100% and all our godlike power with divine intervention and divine power to command nature. And these are facts of life. We are also criticized and rejected by 99.9% of the whole public. And they know that they're all possessed with an outside influence that tells them otherwise, that prevents them from this. Living in a comfort zone with a voice in the mind that sounds like Christ consciousness or sounds heavenly, but it's an illusion. It's an imagination. It's a personality. And you're trapped in your own personality. And you're suffering from stress, fear, anxiety, confusion, frustration, delusion, and paranoia. Your body cells are in corruption, coercion, in the daytime. And you're trapped in your mind containing 7 to 15% of your brain. With brain deformity, with brain fog. And you don't believe it. You live on grammar. You live on programming. You live on engineering. You can't feel the truth with deja vu to predict the future, prevent what's going to happen. On direction microphones, I can feel the truth when they go to court and put my pen to paper with my name on it. They found that out, that I'm far more advanced. I stand in Indian in such a way the X-ray machine 5 years later could not detect it, because I've deja vu go into the future and use the future technology to prevent what's going to happen. I designed laboratory glass no sinus thought of that took a 40.5-hour process down to 3.5, and they couldn't believe it. I created the most powerful enlightenment drug in the world out of bread manna from a plant called mayam that no one ever created before. That brought people back in the Pramod state and used 100% of their brain. You see in the movie Limits with deception and lies and propaganda, because every American's a propaganda artist. They live in their opinions and they only care about themselves with their opinions and voice all their opinions with all their educated knowledge. And it's only an opinion because they're engineered. They can't think instinctively outside the mind as they say in the Matrix. Right? They can't use metals, telepathy, yes, people, motion, telekinesis, levitation, spoon, many clockwise, falling space and time with deja vu, predict the future, but it's going to happen. Their aura's not clockwise to do what Christ can and more with genetic memory and a genetic ancestral tools. So therefore, they've got to go through fasting for 40-day fasting and crossover with the book Freedom by Jim McGinnis and when I breathe the program to create the second secretion, because otherwise they haven't got to open hell. If they don't go through resurrection and crossover, they haven't got to open hell because their mind controls them. And most people beyond the point of return declared worldwide. In DNA studies done, beyond the point of return. 98.7%, right, their aura's anti-clockwise, and they live in their mind and personality and have never woken up amnesia and the reincarnation trap to master their own vessel, right, back in their primal state. They're not in their primal state. They're trapped in mentality, in a personality. DNA, the book of life, messenger. DNA's RNA. And if you're not controlling your own vessel, you're not a messenger. When you can't master your mind, you're an actor for someone else. If you cannot master your mind to use all your godlike power in your own DNA with genetic memory that's coded in your DNA with all your biofields, right, and your 24th chromosome, and everything coded in your own DNA, you're developed like this. So if you can't use all these to do what Christ can and more, then you did not follow those footsteps neither, and you are delusional. And the whole world's delusional and in denial. The whole world's living in a massive global delusional state in denial and think they're chosen in their mind. In their mind. But naturally and organically, it's outside the mind with an outside influence. Okay? Principality in the power in the air. Divine power that hits you like a ton of bricks and the mind doesn't know. When you cross over, you think outside the mind with divine power to command nature. It's about power. It's about the love pouring all over you with an ecstasy feeling, high as a kite. So high you've never been so high in your life, and your mind didn't know because you come right out of your shell and stick your head for the light in your tunnel, and then you know. And until then, you don't know. That's when you have the most powerful confirmation, most powerful clarification, most powerful divine intervention, and then you know. And not before. You cross over through the rebirth and back in your primal state, back in your innocence, back in your selflessness, like a child. And you revise your perception in a 40-day fast as you listen to the book Freedom on audio and do win up every day with meditation and recreate the sacred secretion with the Holy Breath of Life and the Holy Grail of Life. And then it'll activate your progenitor genes with a natural process for a massive transformation in DNA. The World Transformation Movement is the most powerful influence in your reality with natural selection and a natural order with when I'm breathing is won a Nobel Prize. This is the most powerful confirmation on earth. 99.9% of you people avoid this. The most. They call it propaganda, but they're all trapped in their mind and do not know what to do. They can only use 7% of their brain and to 10% of the brain in over 99% in every Western with defective genes. 600 to 6,000 defective genes, hereditary defective genes with personalities they're spreading into their children, and now 77% of all American children are born with chronic diseases declared worldwide in DNA. DNA doesn't lie. Robert Kennedy told you, FDA, and Jeremy Griffiths, and you don't believe in it. You're told worldwide non-stop that you're crazy, right? And you're suffering stress-related diseases with the biggest stress and paranoid pandemic worldwide spreading like a virus and affecting animals going around circles over the earth, fish going around circles, birds falling out of the sky, and abide syndromes with vertigo, amnesia, concussion, dizzy spells, right? Can't sleep at night, fatigue, worldwide, with mental disorders, blood clots, myocardial disease, cancer, gene defects, going out of control as people are losing all their magnetic poles. 27 biofields. The Holy Spirit divine light is your 27 fields in the most positive fields with the EMP pulse in your tune to codependent power. And without that codependent power, that's a relationship. That's a universal power, right? With the aura so powerful, it will protect you in your sixth sense, in your spirituality. But you live in mentality in the five sense world. And you don't believe in that. Most people beyond the point of return declare worldwide. They've gone through that many inflection points with unnatural selection. They gave too much consent, right, to the outside influence that controls the reality. When they believe in their own truth and believe in their own mind and manifest their own truth and come to their own conclusion with reasoning, they're giving the consent in their mind to the voice of mind that's been ultimately assigned to extinction. That's only a personality. So those people that live in their own truth, own manifestation, and all the grandmothers that live with atheism tools and the wrong barcodes are the ones with false gods, right, inside their mind and come to the conclusion of five sense world in their consciousness and middle event and middle present illusion imagination. It's not spirituality, it's mentality. Set up by the Rockefellers in a conscious singularity. It's the biggest soul trap in human history. And people can't use the soul power. They can't use spirituality and their natural process with the natural selection, and they don't even have faith in their own biological genes to use their own natural organic molecules, because I'm the most natural organic person in the world with DNA studies done, with my natural process and my natural selection with genetic memory. You can do what I can and more, but you're not using it. You don't know how to. You're unnatural. Okay? You're not human. You're post-human, declared in 99 since 1960, going into transhuman states in a massive global zombie apocalypse where people are just actors and a mouthpiece and don't talk about themselves and their opinions. Right? Be possessed beyond the point of return. Possessed beyond the point of return majority. There's only one way out of this, and they know that by the top scholars in the world. I sat down at a 6-hour meeting with two most powerful people from the Star Chamber Inquiry, two most powerful biologists in the whole world, for 6.5 hours. For 6.5 hours. And not too many people know what we know. I can promise you that. People live in brain-locked denial. They live in a delusional state. They only live in their own truth and can't heal the truth, can't face it and can't deal with it. And because they don't do that, they will go into a 6-month extinction, strip from their sixth sense for the 6th time, because it doesn't work. They have to dedicate to cross over to restore, right? To go through the resurrection, right? To go back in the primal state, to go into longevity for 1,000 years. From 27 of September to 27, the new climbing block, It's a point of no return. We're going to a new timeline of sevenfold wisdom and knowledge. And at that point, there's no more heaven and hell written in the Bible. So I want you to think about that. We create heaven and earth. From that moment onwards, that's the crossover and the point of no return. If you're not crossed over, there's no more heaven and hell. Do you know what that means? Either you'll suffer for 1,000 years, right? You'll be trapped in your mind in a slavery system without realizing it. And that's what the Bible tells you. Stay red hot or ice cold. Don't be lukewarm in the middle. Walk with the enemy, work with the enemy. Love thy enemy. Be ice cold or red hot. Don't be confused in the middle with the human conditioning and everything you suffer from. Okay? We're suffering, stress, fear, anxiety, confusion, frustration, delusion, and paranoia, and living in a comfort zone, in your own truth, manifesting your own truth, because you do not know what you do in your mind. You don't know what you're doing in your mind. Think outside the mind, you can do what I can and more. So go through the 40-day fast with the book Freedom by Jeremy Gibbs and the Holy Breath of Life. We're not breathing, right? And I will take you to the light at the end of the tunnel and you'll get a clarification. If you don't, you'll stay on the ruby and you'll never know. When you wake up from amnesia, it's one hell of a powerful moment, a powerful event when you cross over with the most powerful confirmation you'll ever have. But when you stick with the light for the end of the tunnel and stick your head out the cave, you can't go back and you'll never go back. You'll never be trapped in your mind again in a personality with mentality ever again. You'll realize what the truth is and it'll set you free for a transformation in your own genetic memory with a transformation in your DNA, a genetic transformation that will unlock your own genetic memory over a period of time. You'll go through a shaking, right? Well, you'll access things over a period of time. Patience is a virtue. Live every day as your last as you go into time where time stands still like preserves for 1,000 years. Those that don't cross over will go fast track into their own extinction, okay, with all their own unnatural selection that they're trapped into. No matter who they are, no matter where they come from, no matter what they believe, the mind's got no idea what they're doing. Only those that think outside the mind, with a natural process and a natural selection, has been given the divine power to command nature in their own DNA, with DNA studies done. And that natural selection has been happening for years. But the biggest inflection point was 2012, where we have the biggest study ever done over the next 3.5 years. 5,000 people had stents with heart attacks, grew brand new owners around. Okay? Some people brought someone back to life and harnessed that kind of power with the biggest miracles in the hospital. CCTV, the whole lot, brought someone back to life. Okay? Some people can levitate a 1-ton stone. 1-ton stone. Some people have a connection with life and trees bend down and talk to them, like you saw with Marion in Norway. Okay? So the people connected to life, so the trees bend down and talk to them, like you saw with Marion, right, up at the hospital in Norway. The tree bending right down to talk to Marion and greeted her, right? And this is happening to people when they're getting reconnected to the tree of life, okay? And their genetic process to think outside the mind, and they have that kind of relationship with a universal codependent power and a universal relationship. And most people are only trapped in their own mind, can't even keep their own families and friends together in real life, right? They have no codependent relationship and no in tune to codependent power because they use their mind to justify what they believe in and make the unnatural selection, right, and come to their own conclusion with reasoning in the mind. They only believe in their own truth and don't use the universal power with codependent relationships because they don't have one. They don't have one. So they haven't gone through natural selection and been taken out of the vessel through the light in the tunnel with that kind of confirmation and then control their vessel from the outside in instead of being trapped inside out. And these are the facts of life that people can't deal with, right? There's only one way out of this. 40-day fast, take zinc, iron, magnesium, drink plenty of water, get completely away from screens, isolate, don't go into competitive nature with anybody, okay? Isolate yourself, get off screens, don't eat for 40 days and you'll go through an unnatural selection into a natural selection in 40 days where you revise your perception and go through everything in your history and realize all your bad, okay, and all the bad done by you, and you go through this and you let go and deal with this, and then you go through an inflection point where you come out of your cell, right, and you face the worst moment of your life in like a death experience where you express and realize the voices inside your mind are controlling you. And then you go through a massive inflection point where you realize now you're in control. And it's not what you think, it's outside the mind. And then you start to control your vessel and the voice of mind and realize they were the reason you suffered to begin with. The voices inside your mind are ultimately showing extinction, and they are just personalities, right, and just mentality. And they'll tell you whatever you want to believe in, but they always control you, and you always listen to them, no matter what you think and say, because you follow them in your own DNA. We know that in genetic memory, and why you're so defective. Crossing over cures every single thing so you never suffer again in your life. No more suffering at all, and freedom beyond the mind, and the liberation is sensational. And the greatest time to be alive when you cross over, and you're in the most high as a kite. And people are jealous by accounts and think you're dreaming on drugs because they're still living in bad vibrations and in negative fields and in self-centered ego, and they're not receiving the divine power to command nature with love like this. So they don't have that kind of love. They don't have that kind of ecstasy feeling high as a kite, and they're not balanced in peace and harmony. We are so balanced with peace and harmony, you do not know what you're missing. It's not about grammar. It's about the truth behind closed doors and the reputation that you have in real life. And when you have honesty is the best policy and down to earth, and you create reputation by word of mouth your whole life, and you're number one, Godfather of the world, and you left the biggest mark on earth the earth has ever seen, in the Star Champ Inquiry, in the most come up case in Australian history, with DNA, you're the most powerful mastermind in the world. And when you're that one, you're the one that leads society with your DNA. Proven with DNA studies in 2008. I am the gatekeeper in the Gatekeeper Report. I'm the one with DNA study that found the cure of the human conditioning and made the drugs to prove it to you. They put me back in the primal state and stopped mental disorders and defects. And they found that with DNA studies done. God-like power gives you abilities to go in a time where time stands still and preserves for 1,000 years and never suffer again. No more death experience. That's warned and promised in the oldest Bible in the world, that we're here to create heaven on earth. So I am the one that comes with the resurrection and protect the elect with the most powerful confirmation on earth and the most avoided person in the whole world. And they know that in the Star Champ Inquiry and the biggest, most powerful documents when I sat down for 6.5 hours. I am the one and the one and only. The most powerful confirmation on earth. And I know the truth better than anyone else, as I'm number one, right, in every single study done. And so I'm here as the most powerful messenger on earth with the most critical information. Your voltage reliability in your DNA and your aura is anti-clockwise in 98.7%. The aura is only clockwise in 1.3% of the population in DNA, and DNA is declared the book of life. So if you don't understand your DNA process with your genetic memory and ancestry tools and your biofields, biosensors, then understand this. The mind doesn't know what it's doing. And if you continue to let your mind control this, you'll never know, right? Because you have no light, no power, no energy, not compared to what you have. That divine power to command nature, do you know what power you have? To do what Christ can and to be a part of that bloodline? Do you understand the power you have? Every single apostle in that bloodline, like Moses, like Elijah, like Enoch who built the pyramids, levitating the stones. Do you know that? It's in your DNA, with genetic memory. But you have amnesia, which means you need to wake up from amnesia, and there's only one way to do that. The 40-day fast and crossover with the book Freedom by Jim McGivers, and When I Breathe the Program, the Holy Grail Life and the Holy Breath of Life, with natural selection and natural order in your DNA. And it's not negotiable. No religious political behavior on New Age cult or grammar, right, or any artificial intelligence or evolution mutation in charge of this. Grammar will not get you out of there. Your mind is the problem and everything you can program into. So you have to cross over through a rebirth, the restoration, the great transformation movement by Jerry McGivers and 16,000 top scholars in the world. And only 125 million people knows this. Only 1.3% of the population has gone through natural selection with the natural order and a divine intervention with a clarification. The rest hasn't, because they're trapped in their mind with their own self-centered ego and competitive behavior and do not know what they do. And therefore, they will go into the extinction, into a sixth mass extinction, stripping the sixth sense for the sixth time, because they're not living in spirituality. They're living in their mind and mentality. And they don't even know. They don't even know, because they're on the blue pill. And until they cross over and have the massive inflection point, they'll never know. Until they have a massive divine inflection point, they will never know. They will never know.